Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology and culture in its myriad of forms. My name's Ben Warner and I'm joined in the flesh by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern for our first SciTech Culture together. So, you know, it's always a good thing. I mean, we've done episodes before, but it's always good to have that dialogue in person rather than over bits and bytes over the internet.
Absolutely, and it's wonderful to be here, SciTech Culture fans. So, we've got another great topic today.
Now, you know that we tend to bring up the topic of mobile devices a lot. It's something that interests us, and we like to sort of keep an eye on what's going on and that sort of thing. Now, we're in Adelaide today, and as part of my visit, I actually had a few hours to myself in the mall, and wandered into the Apple Watch. So that's where I think we'll start.
Very good.
And as you know, on previous episodes, we've talked about the watch and how how it actually works, but and what we think of it. But the reality is that I actually saw it in person now. And I was even more underwhelmed by it, if that's possible.
Wow. I mean, I personally have gone the other way. I haven't changed my opinion on the iWatch, but Apple Watch, I should say. But it does look impressive.
Oh, I'm not saying that it's not, well engineered, well put together and all of that, but it comes down to a question of what am I using this thing for? So
nobody knows.
And that's only a question that'll come up in the months and years ahead, whether Apple will prosecute that case, that it's a useful device. And maybe it might come with when it becomes untethered from the phone and all that sort of thing. But I just felt that it was... I mean, I know it's strange. It was the size of a watch, but if you're trying to get that sort of functionality out of a mobile device, it's too small for that sort of use. And I mean, it does a lot of things quite well, but then I also think... I wasn't convinced that I was going to plunk down $500 even for the basic model. So,
what I find interesting about what you're saying here, Ben, is obviously you understand the product, you know what it can and can't do, and you've gone in to look at this watch with those sorts of things in mind. I was speaking to a few people who really don't know what the Apple Watch does, and in fact, they thought it did a whole lot of things that it doesn't do. Well, it does do it if you have an iPhone in your pocket. So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, maybe it's a time will tell thing. I'm not sure, but it'll be interesting to kind of keep looking at it. I just found it was quite interesting. For me, when I saw the iPhone, for instance, I said, yep, I get that. I saw it straight away how I'd use it. The iPad, even though we've discussed before, is more of a leisure luxury item that you don't really need to have, but you kind of get that too, how you could make that work in your life if you've got the extra money to splurge. But the Apple Watch, I'm finding quite difficult to justify why you would get it, especially over, say, something like a Fitbit. Like I wear a Fitbit, and yes, the Apple Watch does more than a Fitbit, but the Fitbit does exactly what I need it to do, so I don't need it to do anything else, and I don't have to charge it every day. It lasts for a week.
I guess on that, so going past the fact that the Apple Watch does look fantastic, whether you get it in 24 karat gold or just the plastic version. Oh,
and they had the edition watches in the casing there as well, gleaming in the glass.
What are the biggest weaknesses that you see with it? I mean, what won't it do that you would love it to do?
Actually, it's more a case of the thing that jumped out at me straight away is that if you're visually challenged, if you've got some sort of vision impairment, even if it's small, it's a bit hard to sort of, reconcile the fact that it's a very small screen. And then it's a question of what you were using it for, because it seems to me that the majority of the use case is fitness, which you can do with a whole bunch of other devices that are much cheaper. And I guess if you want the luxury and being able to show off with the latest thing, then go for the Apple Watch. But I'm thinking that at the moment there are plenty of other products that would probably just do what you need them to do, and you don't need to spend the extra cash.
Like My Life Track.
Yes, which you've had for quite some time too.
I've had now for probably about 18 months. It's awesome.
Absolutely. We'll move on from the Apple Watch because we don't want to bash it too much. But the other thing I saw in town was the new Surface 3. I hadn't had a chance to have a look at it yet. Obviously, not that much different from the Pro, but it's just a cheaper version with slightly lower specs and that. Had a bit of a play, typing, everything, and obviously, I wouldn't get it because I can't justify the expense of the fact that I'm all in Apple hardware. But I can see how it would be it's a very attractive option for maybe a non-Apple user. It's got some fun. The fact that it's more of a PC than what the iPad is a big feature, and perhaps with Windows 10 coming out shortly, maybe it'll have more relevance. Maybe it'll just have that better use case. But it was very responsive, very fast, and as a mobile traveling companion, I guess it would be quite good if you factored that in with, say, a home desktop PC setup.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I've got a friend at work who grabbed a Surface Pro at the start of the year, and traditionally an Apple user. So worked with the Surface, loved it, used it, went back to Apple last week and said, I feel like I'm home. Now, it's an interesting thing because I've watched this person working with the Surface. They love their Surface, and it wasn't as if they just tried for a couple of days and gave it up. It's an interesting thing. It's the ecosystem that you're familiar with and the workflow that you develop over time.
And that's a problem that Microsoft's facing, and that the ecosystem for Windows is and particularly on mobile, is just it's pretty lackluster. So they're behind the 8 ball in that respect. If they had all the apps, say, that the iOS App Store had, they probably would be in with a real shot at sort of equalising things. But they're hoping, I guess, the release of Windows 10 will fix that, get a lot of the Windows 7 users over. But who knows, I mean, I just don't want to see this particular effort of theirs fail, because I think it's actually a decent effort. But, if we go back in time, Betamax, VHS,
There's always a loser.
There's always a loser, and sometimes it's not always the right one. So
yeah, that's right.
And I guess just we have to talk about Android tablets as well. And most of you would know now, of course, that I'm not too partial to Android in whatsoever. But in having a look at, I know that Samsung's having some trouble with their phones and tablets, but I was having a look at some of their latest line of tablets, in particular the larger tablet, so the 12-inch one, which seems to look like it would work really well in an industrial or professional or creative environment, with a stylus. Steve Jobs hated them, but I'm sure that there's a use case for them.
With a finger.
That's right. But you can see that there would be a professional use case for that, and there's the rumoured iPad Pro coming out at some point, and Apple might be trying to get into the enterprise with that sort of a device. And I can see, although I probably wouldn't use a tablet that's that big, it would have some use, I think. And it seems like at the moment anyway, I'm sure there are other tablets, but the Samsung ones are probably a really good example if people want to check them out.
Yeah, I think Samsung products are pretty good, but I think they've fallen into the same trap as Apple did in the 90s. Just too many products. I couldn't tell you how many tablets there are for Samsung or phones at the moment, and yet there's only a couple of choices with Apple, and I think that it
cuts through.
It cuts through, yeah. So I think that's where some of their issues are coming. But the idea that there's a professional tablet just around the corner for either Apple or for Samsung, I'll have to go and check out the 12-inch. Very interesting.
Just wanted to say too, in my voyage into the Apple store the other day, the geniuses were hard at work jumping on everyone to make sure that they were helpful. And I had to say a couple of times, it's okay, I actually know what I'm looking for. So you can go on to the next person who needs an explanation.
Best they stay away from you, Ben, because you probably know too much.
Yeah, that's right. All right, Steve. We'll return to this topic, I'm sure, in the future. But it's always good to catch up on it. Just remarking on it in, let's say, the past 5 years or so. My first obviously I've had laptops, but if we're talking about the mobile device era, my first entry point into that was the iPhone 4, and my mum is now using that 5 years later, and it's still working. Maybe not quite as good because iOS 7 is a little slow on it, but it's still working really well for what she needs it for. And the fact that I feel like if I can get about 6 years out of a device like that, that's pretty impressive, and I feel like I've got my money's worth.
Sales team won't be happy with it.
Exactly, unless I refer other people in. But the other thing is also the advancement. So we're now recording this episode using an iPhone 6, and it's amazing. You know, it's got a better camera in it than any camera I've ever used for any film I've ever made, and it's a lot simpler. If I really wanted to, if I had all the media on the device, I could probably edit the whole thing on the phone and upload it straight to YouTube after we're done. So the fact that you can actually do that, it's like a mobile production studio. Obviously, there's a bit more work involved to get, you know, obviously you've got to get some good sound and all that sort of thing, but it's a lot easier than what it used to be. And just a short time ago, like the iPhone 4, I never would have used that as a production camera. Not at all. I did attempt it with food discoveries for a couple of episodes, but it was a bit hit and miss with the way that worked. We started with Fish Chat using the iPhone 5, and the only thing with that is that it had to be locked off. It didn't handle the bumps too well. iPhone 6, it's got an image stabilizer in it, and you can do pretty much the Steadicam type shots with it while you're walking around. And my favourite one, of course, was when I was in Japan last year, walking across Shibuya's main intersection with 100,000 people running around, and I just held the camera up like that. I was holding it as I was walking across, and then when I watched it back later, it was like Steadicam footage. So I mean, there are other phones that I'm sure that can do that too. I'm not, this isn't an Apple ad. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But the point is that these devices are at a point where they can do some really powerful things, and it's quite exciting. I mean, do you have any idea where we might be in another 5 years' time?
Well, that's right. I think now there's a whole host of apps out there which are building on the power of the phones and their production capacity, and you effectively have a mobile studio app which will allow you to stream live. So you'll probably find that in the future we'll record these live, stream them live, and then when we're finished, the file will be ready on demand.
Exactly. Which is sort of almost that there.
We're very close now.
Because I can remember the first, when we're starting Fish Chat in those first year, and there was a lot of work just to edit that, even though it was a very simple show.
The first few weeks we're posting tapes back and forth.
That's right. And now it's all very simple, and we can basically be, neither one of us, even though it's good to be in the same room to do one of these, because you get the better flow, of course, when you're chatting and all. But basically over Skype, FaceTime, even Hangouts, if we need to get some extra people in, we can get people in from anywhere. We can be anywhere and record our content, which is just a really impressive place to be in 2015.
That's why science, technology and culture are so important to our way of life.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. So it's good to catch up again.
Pleasure as always.
And don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links there. So interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. I'd love to hear from you. And if you think anyone's interested in checking out these videos, we've got a lot of blogs, photography, and other material on that website. Send them to scitechculture.com. We'd greatly appreciate that. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.